Crude. All right, you ready? Ready to do this, boys?
I'm something.
Welcome to the Awesemo Morning Show. We gotta wait till YouTube gets popping. You know, we got to get YouTube up and running so then everybody's on the same page. It is the Awesemo Morning Show. Dave Loughran, Josh Engleman, Ben Rasa. Got a lot to talk about today. Michael Jordan documentary. We decided to wait a day because hopefully everyone got a chance to watch episodes 1 and 2. Spectacular. It really was. And I'm not just saying that because like there's nothing else going on and they moved it from June to April and I needed something to talk about. No, it was awesome. Episode 2 was incredible. We're going to get into all of that. Hopefully you join us in chat. We got some awesome player prop futures to get into as well. Some big names, some lofty totals, and some bets that you just need to hammer early and often. Get in on these before they start to move. And also, we're gonna we'll start with this. Josh, how you feeling this morning?
Confused. I am wildly confused. This is Ben's fault. I don't pay attention to the news. This would have slipped through the cracks for me. But crude oil is trading at negative $1.50 right now, and everything that I've ever learned in my entire life is being invalidated as we speak.
Yeah, Ben, you brought this up yesterday. Saying, can someone explain this to me? I'm not an economist, right? At all.
I have a minor in it.
So do I.
That's good. But I do understand futures trading to an extent. And I think the conclusion we came to is that we know where the futures contracts were bought and then delivery was coming up. They were about to expire. But essentially the biggest concern, and for anyone wondering, like Josh said, crude oil trading below $1, negative. In the negative. It's negative. It's worth negative money. What we came to the conclusion to after some research and such was that there is a legitimate concern that those receiving these shipments, these contracts of oil, are going to have to pay to get it taken away because they don't have any room left to store it.
Yeah. Listen, I talked to a couple people about this yesterday, saw it making the rounds. I dug into it. I'll tell you, it's fascinating. But man, it's hard to wrap my head around it. How we're at the point where there's such a surplus that, as you just mentioned, before these contracts, it's the end of May, expire. They are literally going to pay people to take the oil off their hands, because they just have nowhere to put it.
Yep. And it's also, I read as well that it's leaving producers paying for buyers to take the oil away as well. Not just someone receiving a contract, receiving oil, but also the producers. Josh, it doesn't help when people aren't leaving their houses and people aren't actually using oil. This is the first time it's ever fallen negative. By the way, like I said, none of us are authorities on this. We're not.
That's clear.
Might have some minors, but not economists. We just enjoyed talking through this because of the lunacy that we're seeing here in the market.
Yeah, I know who it does help out, and that would be my parents who still get oil to their home. Their prices at a per gallon basis to heat their home are basically non-existent. My mom told me a rate that is stupid cheap for her. I was very happy to hear that. So one benefit is the Englemans.
Well, hey, that works. You should see some gas prices around the country too. They're like
under $1.
In many cases, they're plummeting. Yeah,
Are they going to pay me to take gas? Because that'd be dope.
When's the last time you guys have filled up your car?
It's funny. Before all of this happened, I try not to be an alarmist, but I was preparing just in case
I remember.
Yeah, in the event that there was a worst case scenario, I was preparing, and I don't mean boarding up my windows and putting turrets in my. What I did do is I did fill my gas tank completely up and my wife's tank completely up. Like a month and a half ago. And March 14th, March 13th, right before the NBA shut it down, right? So what, a month and a week or so. Horrible decision. I could go now and have done that basically for free.
Yep.
But foresight doesn't always help out. So yeah, it's insane. And when you're looking at some of this, the crazy thing is that oil prices were pretty high not that long ago. They've been struggling for a little while now. Like that's something we know. The whole deal with OPEC, and Trump trying to work a deal out, which apparently has been done. But this is one of the stranger things you'll see. But more so, Ben, when you look at the charting the charts on this, it dropped to almost minus 40 at one point.
Yeah, that's where yesterday it got in, I saw it minus 35 or something, 36. And it's just, my mind, it wasn't programmed to, I just assume once it goes to zero, it goes to zero. Not that happens often, but when it kept going, I was highly confused, which is why I brought it up to both of you this morning. And it's one of the many things that we're seeing probably for the first time and possibly for the last time, all in the same span. It's just uncharted territory, not just in the sports world, but in the world in general.
Oh, it's positive again.
Oh, don't call it a comeback.
So it's interesting because, like, what was the one that went that lost everything in the housing crisis? Lehman Brothers.
Lehman
Brothers.
Yeah, Lehman Brothers.
Lehman Brothers.
I mean, they're not the only ones, but
they were one of
countrywide.
Right, Lehman Brothers was one of the most notable ones.
Yeah.
They can't turn negative, right? When they hit zero, it's a hard splat. With oil, is it the fact that it's a commodity?
Yes.
That in terms of something that's tangible, like oil.
It's almost like some things have real value and some things don't.
Yes, there is intrinsic value to oil. But that's the part that it's hard to wrap your brain around. Like, yes, it's tangible, but has there ever been something where, okay, you can touch it, it's real, and it's just still worth zero, but not negative 40?
Well, the problem is we just can't keep it in retention ponds. But if you can store this out in the open and it didn't kill everything that it would touch, then we wouldn't have this sort of problem. But we can't just hide it in swimming pools and stuff.
Maybe it's a good time to buy some oil.
I was thinking about that. Logically, it seems, but apparently not.
Yeah,
like ETFs. I'm not getting home deliveries here.
No, I know what you're saying, but it seems like there's some more hurdles than just the simple logic like that. And I see where you're coming from, of course.
Yeah, my first thought was oh shit, I'm buying tons of oil today. But and it's uh-oh. Then those contracts come due. Katie's out front porch with UPS trucks bringing me barrels of oil. Obviously, I know that's not how oil is delivered, guys. I don't think they come by UPS truck.
Little FedEx season.
A man by the name of Baron Rothschild said, the time to buy is when blood is in the streets, right? And
the streets.
It's kind of true. Blood is in the streets right now. Blood is definitely in the streets. But let me ask you guys this. And by the way, there's a company that we're very familiar with that is about to go public. We're going to talk about that in a second. Make a nice little segue here. And of course, get into our NFL discussion and the MJ talk. But this is big stuff right now, so we got to hit on it. If you were to purchase oil at minus $40, how do you suspect that transaction goes upon purchasing a futures contract?
What do you mean?
How does that work if it's minus $40?
Mm-hmm.
I assume.
You see what I mean?
I assume you commit, which is essentially like a contract, and then whatever the contract date is on that future is the day that you receive your barrel and $40.
That's the crazy.
It depends when your contract pays off. I mean, you could buy an oil contract which date is in, June of 2021 if you want to.
Right, you can buy futures for further out.
But if we're talking about to take May or whatever, I assume you get a barrel and a check the day that it comes in, so to speak.
It's the whole thing is crazy. I mean,
it's just like when Domino's couldn't deliver your pizza fast enough and it just ended up being free.
Yeah, the whole thing is out of control. It really is. It's worth keeping an eye on, though.
Run the Bases says, I bought a few quarts from AutoZone and filled up my bathtub.
There you go.
I'm not sure you nailed it, but
bold strategy.
Kudos. You're gonna be like Jesse in Breaking Bad. The thing's gonna fall through the ceiling.
Yeah. Ultimately, I don't know necessarily what to say about it or what to think. Options and futures trading is like actually very complicated. So, forgive me if I'm not well versed in the subject. I like to trade, swing trade, and says don't have time. I do now to day trade, but options trading gets a lot different. And when it comes to like physical futures, like physical commodities trading, like getting oil delivered to your property, that's out of my league, Josh.
Yeah, I don't have a clue. The fact that there are futures on all sorts of things like coffee and orange juice, but also oil, and oil is now like wah wah, is wild to me.
Right, like, dude, you want to purchase some future corn future contracts? You're in business. You get whatever the hell you want. It's pretty amazing.
This is the crazy part to me, and I guess it's just sort of a testament to where we are societally right now. But for this to happen to oil, I would have assumed that things were significantly worse than this right now. I would have just been like, okay, no matter what happens, this is still a useful commodity in some form.
I agree with you.
Whereas like if coffee goes to zero, it's just like, all right, well, we don't have coffee any longer, but we'll get by.
Right. And imagine what it would take for coffee to go to zero, meaning demand would go to zero.
Oh, how great would it be if you could just get all the dope coffee?
But here's the thing. It would. But here's the thing, okay?
I just have mounds of beans in my backyard.
So hear me out here. The demand for oil is never going to stay at zero. That's a fact, right? Unless like people try and develop
without a new form of energy.
Right. Which is just like not going to happen anytime in the near future.
Correct.
So regardless of, I'm not getting into the politics of it, regardless of how many people want it to, like it's not feasible right now to make a clean shift over to renewable energy across the globe. No. So, right. It's not. So the demand is never going to stay at zero. So what's the way? And I'm not asking you guys this to get like a valid answer because none of us know, but like, what's the way to play this? Because there's got to be a way to play this when you know that there's zero chance the demand stays at zero. You know what I'm saying?
Right, yeah. I know what you're saying. It's just
I don't understand. Like, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I don't understand how any of this is really happening.
Yeah, it's not. It's obviously more complicated because I can tell you, I can speak to this perfectly because this is where I'm at. Like the elementary school logic to this is oil is way, 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 way too low because of something that's obviously eventually going to change. When it does, we're going to go back similar to what it was. The demand will go through the roof and the price will go way up. So naturally you buy when it's really low and then it goes back and you make all this money. Obviously it doesn't work like that because that is like the simplest logic ever. Yeah. And if it did, everyone would be doing that. So clearly there's more intricate things at play. It's fascinating. It's just something I'm certainly not well versed in.
That's crazy. And I mentioned a minute ago, Russia and OPEC approved the biggest ever oil cut a week ago. That was a week ago that they approved that cut. So I don't know how look, I'll tell you this much, something I'm very much going to, I think all of us looked into this quite a bit to try and get an idea of not only what's going on, but potentially how to play it. I'm not sure there's an easy answer for something that is unprecedented, because we've never seen oil turn negative before, which is pretty crazy.
I use my strategy, sorry, Josh, of what I do for everything is I talk to people that are much smarter than me, who are well-versed in these exact fields. And I kind of try to soak up their logic. And most of them are saying it's very murky waters. So if they're saying that, obviously I'm saying that, and that's where we're at.
Staying on a similar path, DraftKings, we got news about a week ago that they had filed to go public. And Josh, one very interesting point, or something that I found very interesting here, is listen to this. Last month, right? And this is an April article. It's from less than a week ago by Darren Rovell. Last month, DraftKings had DraftKings, where is it? Okay, here it is. In 2018, DraftKings had an average of 600,886 unique players each month. These customers spent 31 per month. That's $226 million. In 2019, those monthly averages ballooned to $684,039 per player, $323 million. And they just, this is the part that blew my mind. Over the 5-year period from 2017 to 2021, DraftKings projects a compound annual growth rate of more than 31%, which would make it one of the fastest growing businesses in the United States.
It's crazy. What that's saying? Sports betting.
Yeah, I was going to say this has nothing to do with DFS.
Well, yes, it does to an extent. 30% of the revenue was from sports betting in 2018.
Yeah,
and they were only in New Jersey at the time. So yeah, it's going to be huge in terms of what impact it has on them. There's no question. But to think that it's still going to make it one of the fastest growing industries in the United States just speaks volumes about the demand there is for those type of activities.
I see it the opposite way. It speaks volumes to the lack of supply.
There's a huge supply. They've just done a better job of they've just done a better job.
But at that point in 2018, there was essentially no supply. If you were sports betting in the United States, you were essentially only doing that in Las Vegas.
Right.
But if you're legally.
Right.
Which is,
I don't think
once every sports book can exist, those growth numbers need to be based on something else.
Right, but I don't think it's like maintenance man John Sampson saying, "Hey guys, getting into our compound annual growth rate, we're in business here. 31% is what we're projecting." Like, I'm sure this was somebody that knows how to work with numbers and forecast growth of a company. I don't think there's just some random schlub.
I mean,
sounds high to me.
It sounds kind of low to me. Just thinking about it, there is an appetite unlike almost anything else for gambling. New Jersey, I know you just said this, but New Jersey accounted for roughly 30% of the company's overall revenue.
It's crazy.
That means that when some of the larger states, just them will account for probably 100% of what DraftKings was doing. I don't think that that's an unfeasible thing to think that there are states that will do over 3 times the revenue that New Jersey did. It's massive, and DraftKings has millions of people with accounts. So when you can seamlessly transition to clicking a button and betting, it's going to be huge. Now, I know they have stiff competition from many other sites, but it's open season, and sports betting is going to make DFS look like, crumbs to the pie.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the question. Like the legalities of all of this and how many people are given the opportunity to take a bet is massive in that equation.
And DraftKings took a big net loss in 2017, but I think the answer to that is pretty obvious. They spent $185 million in marketing. So,
customer acquisition.
Yeah, exactly. So take a net loss, but once you get them hooked, once you get them in the door, they're not going anywhere.
So one of the things, and I've talked about this before, that I have been most surprised at, since of course, we're providing a lot of sports betting things. We're gonna have a lot of things on that front coming out shortly. We're really excited about it. Is I thought that the number of people who wanted to bet that couldn't legally and didn't was like basically zero. I figured if you wanted to bet, regardless of where your state was at, you would bet. I couldn't have been more wrong about that. The number of people that I talk to that say to me, I can't wait till my state gets on board. I want to bet sports, but I never have, is massive. And I just never thought that was the case, which makes it even bigger.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's going to make a huge, huge difference once more starts begin to open things up. And certain states already are beginning to open things up.
You have it.
What's that?
You can bet on DK Sportsbook.
Yep. And FanDuel and really anywhere. But I can't play second half showdowns on DraftKings, which just makes no sense at all.
Neither can I. Yeah.
Feels like a lifetime ago that I had to convince my mom to open up a Sports Interaction account in her name so that I could get some money down on college football.
I hear that.
Exactly.
Man. Carib Sports.
And
Mom, I need your ID or they're not going to send me a check.
Tennessee sports betting is also set to be live pretty soon. So like states are making pushes to get this done. The big one is New York. And it's kind of fascinating what's going on in New York, because when you talk about like there being states that could have 3 times the sports betting revenue or money bet than New Jersey, you would think New York would be one of them, but man, they're lagging behind in all of this.
There's too much corruption in the state of New York. They're also the last state to ever get mixed martial arts.
Or just
dead last. You were not allowed to run UFC mixed martial arts events in New York until 2 years ago, I believe, maybe 3.
Really?
Maybe 3 years ago now. Yeah, there is so much politics in the state of New York that it really costs a lot of money to get something through. You're bidding against other people that want that service for themselves.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Just to speak to it, we've got the tribes, we've got a big horse racing presence in Saratoga and Belmont. And there's just a lot of people that want the same thing. The casinos want it, the tribes want it, the government wants it. They have passed betting. There are places that you can go in New York State and bet legally. The problem is they refuse to pass mobile betting. So you have to drive to places that nobody wants to go to. I've been there. I've seen it with my own eyes. It's not conducive to massive numbers. You need the mobile component. They're reluctant to do that. And I don't know why. Eventually they'll get on board, I'm sure. There's too much money to not, but that's where New York is right now. You can physically go and bet sports, but it's not a seamless process by any stretch. And you certainly can't use an app.
So then you've got to ask yourself what the politics of this is. Like if they're not allowing sports betting mobily, which is like, so like what casinos can you drive to and bet sports?
I mean, they're just, physical brick and mortars that are scattered. I believe there's one up in Rochester. There's one that's.
Are they small?
Yeah, they're pretty small.
I only ask because if you were to bet DraftKings mobile or FanDuel mobile or William Hill, right? Those brick and mortar smaller casinos on the sports betting front probably take a massive hit. But if they were smart, they would just get them to develop an app and allow you to bet through the app for local casinos if you wanted to make it legal,
It's obvious. Again, it's similar to the oil conversation. It's very complex. It's not as simple as it should be. A lot of people want it a lot of different ways, but it's just not conducive. Like there's nothing in the city or like you have to drive north, and that's just not realistic. So we'll see what happens. The appetite is there, but everyone now knows. That's why DraftKings and FanDuel the ability to, roll over, click your phone, scroll, and put a bet in, you can't put a price on that. No one's going to be driving out every day to bet sports and bet props and things of that nature.
It's all really similar to medical marijuana. It's a slow trickle across all of these states, even though you see sort of the benefits in revenue that you can get. But if that money is not, like, if marijuana money is coming in, that means it's not getting spent on something else. Those people are lobbying against you. Same thing for sports betting. If people are now sports betting, that is money that they're not spending in some other form of entertainment in their lives that you have to outbid in order to get yourself to that point. It's crooked as shit on the back end.
So hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us, and girls hanging out with us every morning here on the Awesemo Morning Show. I'm going to take a turn here. Before we do, I wanted to update everybody on any new developments that we had in the world of sports. Try and hit on that every morning. We'll do that again now. It looks like the Bundesliga is still targeting a May 9th return, which is encouraging. I know a lot of people are probably waiting for that to unravel, but thus far it hasn't. So you'd get good soccer coming up very, very shortly. And then other news that's from Friday, like it happened Friday, but I don't think we knew about it until like in full until a day or two ago. The NBA Board of Governors held a meeting on Friday, and Commissioner Adam Silva said it's still too early to give a more definitive timeline on when the league might return. He's quoted here saying, "We are not even at the point where we can say if only A, B, and C were met, there is a clear path. Many bubble-like scenarios where the NBA would take over, say LA or Las Vegas, to finish the season have been floated by those to the league." Silver says again, "I'd say in terms of bubble-like concepts, many of them have been proposed to us and we've only listened. We're not seriously engaged yet in that type of environment because I can't answer what precisely will be needed in order to feel that environment provided the needed health and safety for our players and everyone involved." And then he finally says that the NBA won't provide estimates or definitive return dates until at least the beginning of May. So, Josh, I was watching a Mark Cuban interview with Stuart Varney from the other morning on a business channel, and he was asked if he would be okay with doing everything without the fans. And he said, absolutely 100%. And he said, we need to do it, right? He said, Silver already said that until the beginning of May, we won't start planning any action. But he's like, we need to do it. People need sports in their lives. This is something that would be way better than not doing it at all. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but Mark Cuban, who clearly has some type of, pull in the NBA, was all about playing these games without an audience.
Good. I mean, that makes me feel like I'm more likely to see sports. That's for sure. And I don't get the sense ever that Cuban just says things to say it. I tend to believe he believes whatever is coming out of his mouth at the very least. I don't entirely agree with him, but at the same time, that makes me excited to think that the NBA could be back soon. The Bundesliga coming back on May 9th feels like the biggest, this is not going to last very long thing that I could ever think of. If they come back on May 9th, I'm not confident there's another game after that.
Tell me why.
I just assume that someone gets the coronavirus after having that many people playing against each other, that one slips through the cracks and it shuts it back down again.
Where are you at on this, Ben?
So I think to speak to the NBA part, I didn't see that interview. I agree that Cuban, he's someone that's pretty calculated. I think part of that is people, I don't want to say never, but I don't think there are reasonable scenarios where we just see fans in the stands. Like, I think he's trying to prepare people that we have to temper expectations that we may see NBA games sooner rather than later. They're not going to have fans, though. They're just not, unless something drastically changes. So in terms of the Bundesliga, I'm not well versed on what Germany's doing, but it seems from what I have read that they're pretty on top of things over there, and that they've calculated that this is a time where we can experiment and we can see what happens. I feel pretty confident that they do get off the ground. What happens after that is anyone's guess, but that is what I think you have to do. You have to plan and try to execute and then reevaluate. So hopefully we can use that model here. PGA Tour still, as far as I know, on schedule to resume in June. Maybe MLS, and then hopefully that leads to, baseball, hockey, football, basketball. So we'll see. World Series of Poker was canceled. A friend of the show just pointed that out. Alex Hahn, no surprise there. Obviously, poker, really difficult environment to try to structure.
So I'm encouraged to hear that Mark Cuban is cool with that, because at least it gives us an idea that that is on the table, at least, like has been a proposed idea, which we know it has been, but it's good to know that they are actually considering something like that. So I like to know that. Is it definitely going to work? Not necessarily, but the three of us have said a lot. It all depends on whether or not they have available testing and whether or not they can take precautions. I think it's possible, but I also think it's possible to learn from other leagues. Like if this Bundesliga goes off without a hitch, it's not a terrible thing to find out how they did it. And if it doesn't, you find out what they did wrong. So we're definitely going to see some things begin to give us ideas on how to proceed going forward, and we'll have to find out. But anyway, let's talk a little NFL here. We pushed this to, you know what? No. Let's go. Jordan. Let's go a little MJ.
Yeah.
The Last Dance, because I wanted to get to that yesterday, and we decided to push it off so everybody could finally be able to watch all of it. Yeah. That was spectacular, and there's so much, Josh, that I didn't know, that I thought I knew but had no idea, and I forgot about certain things, like because I was very young. Actually, no, I don't think I was born at the time this one was happening, where Jordan was limited to 7 minutes per half, and who was the coach? Allback, was going to get fired on the spot by Jerry Krause if he played him more than 1 second above his his minutes limit, because they clearly were trying to lose games and ended up making the playoffs where he wasn't limited and scored 49 and then 63 points against a juggernaut Celtics team. What a wild story that was.
They should have never put him on the floor for a single second. It's one of the biggest errors in Bulls history. What a mistake. Giant mistake. They should have shut him down the whole way. Tanking was by far the best idea.
Yep. But
the lottery is different then. It's not even weighted.
Yeah.
It's somebody like Michael Jordan, though. Like if that's Kawhi Leonard and he's just like, all right, that's fine. Michael Jordan, clearly that personality was something that you could tell many of them just were almost afraid to contend with.
In 1987, he's not the same person.
And even so, it's a common thing that you have to do what's best for the player because the player can't, that's what the NFL has done with, I know, more serious things with concussions, but you can't leave decisions in the hands of these guys because they don't understand the big picture. He's very fortunate that me and Josh were talking about this yesterday. Say he broke his foot again. The butterfly effect of that, we are certainly not having this conversation. And who knows how much is different. And some people say that would never have happened. You don't know that, though. It's incredibly risky, and obviously it worked out for the better.
Like, how much of that whole 10% chance of him re-injuring it and never playing again was just bullshit to begin with?
Who knows?
Like the team doctors.
Oh, they have no idea what that percentage, the error bars on that are ridiculous.
Yeah. Right. Like Jerry Reinsdorf could have easily had that doctor in his pocket. It's the team doctor. Like it's very possible. But the favorite part of the episode 2 for me, the Scottie Pippen stuff was interesting. But when Jerry Reinsdorf says to Michael about the 10% thing, he's like, I tried to put it to him this way. If you had a really bad headache and there are 10 pills and 9 of them take your headache away, but 1 of them kills you, would you take them? And he goes, I told Jerry, depends how bad the fucking headache is. which was just like
amazing.
the wildest mentality to have.
It's amazing. That's hilarious and very obviously like exactly the way Michael Jordan thinks.
I never would have imagined, Ben, Scottie Pippen just apparently berating Jerry Krause on the bus, in the locker room. Like in 2020, that would probably be considered some form of abuse based on how it was interpreted back then.
Yeah. This again, similar to you, Laffy. Like I remember the second three-peat, not the first, because I was just too young. And I just, a lot of that stuff was blurry. But one of the things that stood out the most is just how much it's changed in terms of the leverage of if that situation happened now, Pippen would easily have held out, easily got it. Everyone would have been on his side. And just the leverage he would have created would have just been a whole, like he was viewed, and Jordan talked about this, like bad teammate, like you signed your contract, you kind of just stick with it. It's his fault he signed a bad deal. All those things have been kind of changed with just the way the players have taken ownership of a lot of things, especially in the NBA where they hold so much power.
Josh.
Oh my God. I just look at it and it's like, wow, they gave up what amounts to a 1 in 7 chance at Len Bias. Obviously, Len Bias didn't make it, but to make the playoffs and get waxed by the Celtics.
Yep. And for Michael Jordan to score 100 points. My jaw was on the floor watching him, even just the highlights the other night against that Celtics team that had, when you talk about a juggernaut of a team, that was one of the deepest teams that you're ever going to find. And Michael Jordan took them to overtime in a game and was the only reason that they were even remotely competitive. So it's crazy. They lifted his minute limit entirely. He said he basically played the whole game, and there's no question they were going to lose. But I was pretty, it was really interesting to see how Larry Bird spoke of Michael Jordan, almost looking at someone and saying, well, I think he's better than I am. And he didn't, outright say that, but you could tell when these players spoke of him, like when Danny Ainge spoke of him after going golfing and during the game, when Bird spoke of him, it was just a different, they saw him different than any player they'd ever played with. And they had played with some really good players, to put it lightly.
Here's a trivia question for you guys. That 86 playoffs, how many threes did Jordan take in that series against the Celtics?
4.
1.
In the third game. He didn't take one in the first two.
Might have been a heave for all we know.
Yeah. He made it, if it helps.
Oh, did he?
But it could still also be a heave. It's so wild. All of
How would
so
Jordan's
wild.
game translate today?
He's a different player.
I'm asking you an honest question because of what Josh just said. It's a very fair question.
He plays like this now.
Yeah, he would adapt and he would be amazing.
No, I get it. I'm saying, how would the game that he had play now?
If
could it succeed?
The same way.
Without adapting. Take his game from back then and put it today.
It would be very inefficient in my mind.
I think that he's still efficient in his prime years. He's like the greatest version of DeMar DeRozan plus being really good at defense.
I see what you're saying there. Yeah.
Yeah. People are going to think that's a slight, but like that's exactly how it would have been played. Like if DeMar DeRozan had a killer instinct and shot, X% better in the mid-range while also being an all-defensive player. If DeMar DeRozan was good at defense, like he probably doesn't get traded for Kawhi. Like that's how big that gap is.
Yeah, I'm not saying he wouldn't be great. There's no doubt if you take people and they're not able to adapt, they don't know any better. It's just the game evolves. Similar to Kawhi. I think that's very a fair comparison, obviously, but you can't the game changes. And I think that would be, but he could adapt, of course, if he was able to do that. So,
I think the most enlightening part of this entire documentary is we always knew that Jordan was someone who, if he was told he couldn't do something, he'd make sure he does it better than anybody. He gets cut from a team. He goes home. He and his mom sob together, and he comes back out. And now, like a week later, he's the greatest they've ever seen. And it's insane to me, Ben, that to think that he couldn't adapt, knowing that he adapted to every situation in his life, leading up and including basketball.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, the thing that I watched, and I know a million people have said this, and it's not that I didn't think this going into it, but it's just incredible how, when you think of any modern player, it's certainly not LeBron. It's obviously Kobe. When they talk about these things, this is the exact thing you heard about Kobe time and time again. So that part was kind of striking to me, just how similar their mentality was. Whereas LeBron, he just kind of does it a different way in some, not that he doesn't have a killer instinct. We can debate all that stuff, but just the berating and the outwardness of it, the win at all costs. That's the Kobe thing for me when I think of a player that I've seen time and time again.
You guys want to talk a little NFL here?
I just want to point out that Andrew thinking that Rodman wouldn't exist in today's NBA is an outlandish thought process.
Why wouldn't he exist?
I agree. He'd be fantastic. He's Draymond Green. He'd guard 1 through 5. He would have been an incredible center right now. Incredible.
Yeah, he was just the perfect fit for any team that's good. I mean, they were constructed ungodly on top of having the talent. Just what a collection of pieces.
So we got into some win totals yesterday. We weren't able to get into the player props. And now it's time to dive in head first, because boy, do we have a lot of good stuff here. From Wentz to Mayfield to Josh Allen to Kyler Murray to Garoppolo to Lamar to Patrick Mahomes. I think there are a number that should just be a lot different than they are. Ben, I'll start with you. Carson Wentz, over under 27 passing touchdowns. To me, this is one that I love the over on. Love the over on this for a couple of reasons. Carson Wentz last season threw 27 touchdowns with basically Greg Ward as his top guy, not including Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert. Deshaun Jackson played 1 of 16 games. He had 2 touchdowns in that game. Alshon Jeffrey missed 7-8 games himself and Wentz still threw 27 scores. He played 11 games in 2018, and he averaged he had 21 touchdowns in 11 games across 16 games. That gives him 30. He had 33 touchdowns, broke the team all-time single season touchdown record in 2017, only played 12 and a half games. So he was on pace for well over 35. Now you get Deshaun Jackson back, barring an injury, and that's a concern. You get Alshon Jeffrey back. You have Zach Ertz. You have Dallas Goedert. You have a great pass-catching back in Miles Sanders, and you're probably drafting a ready-to-contribute wide receiver in round 1. There's my analysis on why Carson Wentz at 27 touchdown passes is something I will easily be taking the over on. Where do you stand on this?
I'm with you. I do think that at first glance, it seems a little, I don't want to say too good to be true, but there is a lot there. I worry, and you can say this with any guy, but Wentz has shown he's not invincible. He can get hurt, which ends any over bet. But if his weapons come back, he's going to add a wide receiver. And just a quick plug for that, my draft article, Best Bets, is posted. There is a bet on the Eagles for first pick, and it is a wide receiver in my mind. I think there's no doubt that they don't grab Jefferson or go up to get CeeDee Lamb. So he's going to have help there, Miles Sanders. And then just quickly looking at the division, because that's the most important thing. You get 6 games. You got 2 Redskins, 2 Giants, 2 Cowboys. I don't see anything where it's like, well, he's going to struggle in there. He has opportunities in all of those games. So if he plays all 16, I'm with you. I think he eclipses 30 and has a really nice year.
And obviously players get injured. It's always a concern, but I can't take that into consideration to the point where I wouldn't take it because he did play 16 games last year. But yes, it's always a concern with him and Deshaun Jackson. But assuming he plays 16, that is a nice bet on the over, especially given how effective Deshaun Jackson was with him last year in that single game they played. Josh, what about Baker Mayfield? 23.5 passing touchdowns this year. Last year, he had 22 and he threw 21 interceptions. If he just makes a couple less mistakes, a few less mistakes, you're over 24. And that's not including the fact that he had 27 touchdown passes in his rookie season, despite not starting every game. This is an interesting one. I have a pretty strong take on it, though.
Yeah, I try to look at these a little bit different. And one thing I wanted to touch on for Wentz, and it could be like part of a bigger question, is how many games should we expect any quarterback to play in a given year? Because it's obviously not 16. I mean, how many quarterbacks played 16 games last year? 4, 5? It's got to be like a shockingly little number, right?
I don't think it's that low.
I was going to say 10 if I had to guess.
10 seems like so many.
Well, let me via injury, Josh, or
right?
Just in general.
Doesn't count.
No, just in general. How many quarterbacks actually get to 16 games? Because we're going to have 32 quarterbacks or whatever listed here. How many of them are actually going to get to that point? Neither here nor there.
But in Wentz's case, it's not going to be because of a benching.
Right. He only has one out to not play 16.
Exactly.
So that is my next question. That's how I feel about Baker. So many of these rely on, is there someone that you can conceivably see starting a game over him for any reason other than injury?
For Mayfield?
I'd be shocked, right? For him to get
0%.
benched. He would have to be like very broken on the field. So I would be shocked if he doesn't throw over 23.5 touchdown passes in now his third year, right? Third year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would be
after learning so much about the NFL in 2 years. Like, for him to not beat last year's number would really surprise me. I think the Browns were just a year early last year, and that's why everybody ended up looking wildly stupid.
And the fact that in his rookie season, he put up such incredible numbers. So it like clearly bit them in the ass. I don't know. I'm going over here, Ben. And, yesterday I mentioned that Odell Beckham, or I might have mentioned it a couple of days ago. I think it was yesterday. Odell Beckham had the second most deep balls thrown his way last season. And only 10 of 33 were catchable. He caught 8 of them. Mayfield makes a few adjustments, and 3 of those are additional touchdowns. Like Odell still had he still had 10,000 or 1,035 yards, despite Baker Mayfield being so wildly inaccurate. So the way I see it, there are so many outs for him to get over that number, including Austin Hooper, including Odell Beckham, assuming he's still there, including Jarvis Landry, including Kareem Hunt as a pass catching back. Where are you at?
By the way, 13 guys. I'm way wrong.
What's that?
There were 13 guys that started all 16 games, so I'm way wrong.
Yeah. And like, if you were to not include take out the ones that were benched because they were terrible and only take the ones that started, like only take the ones that were out for injury that didn't play 16, that number is actually, the number of those that played 16 is actually very high.
Well, yeah, I would never just get rid of the injuries in the NFL, but I'm sure like even Lamar Jackson, Kirk Cousins, Brissett, Watson, Trubisky, they all played 15. Matt Ryan played 15. I'm shocked. I feel like the only story last year was like, here are all these quarterbacks that are garbage that are like starting NFL games. And now I don't know when those things were happening.
By the way, a lot of them played 15 games because they sat in week 17.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I was shocked by that number. Shocked.
Yeah.
Look, it's tough because I think one thing, and we're certainly going to dive into this more on the content side, a common mistake of off-season props is to think that the over is always going to, because like when you look at these at first glance, if you had a rapid fire in a vacuum, I feel like you would take the over on like everything because you're just like, you always picture the guy playing 16 games. It's like, he only needs like 1.5 touchdowns a game. That's nothing. Like this team, he should have done it last year, but it doesn't always work like that. And I'm not using Baker just as the example. I think that in general, Josh, you could speak to this more than me. The tricky thing about the injury thing is it's not where it's like, oh, he's injured, so he only plays 15. Like a lot of times the average injury is multiple games.
Yeah.
And I would love to know when they set these lines, if it was a guarantee that these quarterbacks were playing 16 games, how many more touchdowns would be baked into each line? Obviously, it wouldn't be the same as it is now. They're not assuming 16 games. So it's just tricky for me to look at a guy like Baker. Obviously, my first thought is over just because he has the weapons. But then I think about Chubb on the ground. I think about where they're at as a team. And then I kind of shy away from it. So those are just my general thoughts on these over props. I think at first glance, you always lean over, but then you have to remember that it's not that simple.
So then do you just not bet them at all?
I think you have to pick your spots in terms of you have to look beyond just that first glance. You dig into the schedule, you dig into the divisional opponents, the tendencies around the red zone, I think are really important. Someone like Nick Chubb, I think is going to gobble up a ton of work. If the Browns are winning, they're going to be running more. That's the one thing people don't talk about. Yes, Baker had a lot of interceptions. They were also down in a lot of games where he was throwing late. If they're more successful, he's going to be way more efficient. That doesn't necessarily translate to more touchdowns. Obviously, if they're wildly successful, it will. But it also, you don't throw late in the game sometimes.
Yeah. It's interesting, though, because Nick Chubb saw his touches decline pretty considerably over the last 5 games.
He did, yeah.
And I don't even know how much that had to do with Kareem Hunt. But speaking of efficiency, that's where I get to one where I really like the under. And the under is
I'm
for
looking at
Jimmy Garoppolo, 27. I'll let you get. We'll get to yours next.
Yeah, no rush.
I'll tell you why. Jimmy Garoppolo under 27 to me feels like a bet that I'm very much willing to take for a couple of reasons. He was 5th in touchdown passes last season. 5th. He was 18th in passing attempts and 11th in yards. So knowing that touchdowns are volatile, not necessarily as much for quarterbacks, but there's still some volatility there in terms of what you see from year to year. There's some unpredictability. The 5th most touchdowns with the 18th most pass attempts just goes to show you how efficient he was. They don't have Manny Sanders anymore. He's in New Orleans. Outside of Baltimore, well, actually, how about this? In terms of running back carries per game, so rush attempts per running back, not quarterback, San Francisco led the league last year. They were 2nd overall in carries or in rushes behind Baltimore, but that's because of Lamar Jackson's weekly averages. So there are a lot of reasons to think that Jimmy Garoppolo, who threw 27 last year, comes in well under that this season. This is my favorite under of any over under for touchdowns that I can see. And I know probably going to upset a couple people that are Niners fans. I'm not saying that it means they're going to be bad. I'm just saying a team that rushes that much and doesn't attempt nearly as many passes as you'd like and has a bunch of young wide receivers, 27 is just too high for me. Go ahead, Josh.
Well, I guess I got a couple things on Jimmy G, and I don't really have a stance here. So we had 27 last year, played all 16 games. You are pretty adamant that you think the Niners are going to be worse next year, correct?
Well, only because when you're talking about like win-loss records, it's very difficult to follow up a season like that, right? It's very difficult to follow up. What was their 2019 record?
13-3.
Yes, I absolutely think they're going to be worse than 13-3 in a tough division.
Would that imply then you would think Jimmy Garoppolo will throw more this season?
No, because I think they will be worse, but I just don't I expect their defense to still be good. So I don't expect this to put them in a scenario where they're going to be playing from behind because their defense unravels, because they still have a very good defense.
Like, I think this line, the only reason that I would like the under for Jimmy G is simply that I don't think that he plays 16 games. Every game that he loses is going to be really problematic for him to make up that sort of ground. That's just not the kind of player, and that's not the kind of team that they are. So this bet for me would be more about the health of Jimmy Garoppolo than the 49ers outlook.
Yeah, but you can't just project him to throw 200 more times than he did last season.
Well, no, I mean 200 is a crazy amount.
Right, but you're still saying like, oh, I'm expecting him to have to throw a ton more and for them to abandon their run game. Like, I don't know. It seemed anyway. Who did you have that you wanted the under on?
Drew Brees. 30 and a half.
Why?
41? Like, I just think that's a really safe bet on Drew Brees not playing 16 games this year.
He never gets touched. That's the one scary part.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Like, at some point in time, like, he's going to lose the zip on the fastball. He's going to lose the ability to move. He's going to lose the ability to stay healthy. I mean, obviously missed some games last year. Still had 27 TDs in 11 games. Like, he was still wildly efficient, completing
He's gonna be
74% of his passes, which is just insane. But
he
like,
can throw it 1 yard.
That's what that's what I'm thinking. Like, when does it start looking a little bit different?
And now he has Emmanuel Sanders alongside Michael Thomas. That's a pretty lethal combination.
Like 3 years ago at 38, he had 23 touchdowns. They still went 11-5. The year before that, 32. So just snuck over it. Only played 15 games in that one. They were 13-2. Didn't need to keep playing. Was having a great year. This is going to fall off at some point in time.
Do you factor Taysom Hill in at all when you're thinking about this?
No, I don't think you can.
I mean, they do use him in the red zone, but teams also use running backs in the red zone too.
Yeah,
so.
He's just like another dude.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I'm concerned in that one.
He's Drew Brees.
He threw 6 passes last year.
My buddies and I were talking about this yesterday out having a beer, social distancing, of course. There have been 11 seasons where quarterbacks have thrown for 5,000 or more passing yards. 11 seasons. 6 players have done it once.
Is it 4?
No one's done it twice.
5.
Drew Brees has done it 5 times.
Yeah.
That is one of the most insane stats that you will ever come across in the NFL. And what's even wilder is like, even in this day's NFL with the league trending far more in the direction of a pass first, it's still going to be incredibly hard to break that record. He did it 3 straight years in a row. And the year that he missed it after that, he missed by 48 yards.
I mean, he's got everything. He has the perfect system. He plays inside. He plays in a division that tends to be more up and down. And it's his difficulty of pass is I don't have a stat for this, but it's the lowest in the league. I mean, he gets it to guys like Kamara and these playmakers, and they do so much damage. I'm not saying Drew Brees isn't good by any stretch, but man, it's such a repeatable attack the way they scheme. Really not a lot of pressure on him. It's just about him avoiding hits, which is really easy to do when you get the ball out that fast.
All those seasons, only 1 Super Bowl.
Yeah. It's tough to win Super Bowls. Very, very tough. I mean, they've lost. Think about not to go on a tangent, but think about how they've lost.
Oh, it's been bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Minnesota.
To be fair, they kind of got jobbed recently.
Wait, what?
I mean, they've lost 3 horrendously bad things. Not all their fault, obviously, but 3 years in a row, it's been awful.
The Diggs touchdown was who was the cornerback? It was his fault, but it's still like that should still never happen. That's like a 1 in 1,000 chance.
Yeah.
Never like tackle them, not after the play, during the play if you have to.
Yeah.
Just do anything besides that.
And then the one on the Rams, the PI call, that was, well, I mean, you had Saints fans trying to sue. So that tells you all you need to know. And then what was the third one, man?
Well, Kirk Cousins beat him in overtime last year in the Superdome. You know, it was just a game that I thought the Saints should have won. They had their chances, and then, Cousins I believe Kyle Rudolph caught that touchdown.
It was Kyle Rudolph, yeah,
to send him home. So it just shows the slim margins. A couple little things here and there. Breeze easily could have 2 or even 3. And think about how that conversation would be going.
It's kind of crazy that last year Mahomes played 14 games. Let's say 13 and a half though, because he got injured in that Broncos game. I don't want to count that as a full game. He threw 20. I was shocked when I was going over the numbers yesterday. 26 touchdowns last season. 26. He threw
27.
He threw 50 touchdowns in 16 games in 2018. He averaged 3.1 touchdowns per game. Last year, 1.86 touchdowns per game. His touchdown props at 35.5 going into 2020.
I got the under.
Yeah, so do I. That's just, yeah, I know he's unbelievable. That's just too many touchdowns for a team that plays outdoors. That's a lot. It's a given he needs to play all the games. I'm not saying it's not for other, but when you're up that high, you almost can't make up for that.
Yeah.
So that's just too many. And the division doesn't stand out one way or another, but not for me.
So this one might be the craziest in terms of expected regression. So Lamar Jackson has a touchdown prop of 26.5 on DraftKings Sportsbook. 26.5. Last year, Lamar Jackson threw 36 touchdown passes in 15 games. In 15 games, he sat out the final game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. He threw 36 touchdowns in 15 games. Where does that compare to the rest of the league? Well, I'll tell you. First, number 1 in football, 36 touchdowns in 15 games. Now he's at 26.5. I really thought that I'd have a shot to take the under on something that I felt great about. I didn't think it would be at 26.5. I thought it'd be at least 30. I agree with the line.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
I agree with that it's 26.5. I wish that it was more closely resembling last year's totals.
It's so tough because, again, I don't want to keep saying injuries, but if there's one guy, the way he plays, like, I think you have to worry a little more about injuries. He also ran pretty pure with the passing. They were in a zone unlike anything I've seen.
And he had 7 rushing touchdowns.
So,
I mean,
we'll see.
Last year will go down as his best season ever for his entire career.
Season, yeah, I agree with that.
You would think
full
so.
stop. It's basically impossible for it not to.
It's like Mahomes 2 years ago.
Yeah. If he were to do what he did again, then you're already putting him in the conversation for someone that, if he did that 3 years in a row, you're like, okay, these are the best 3 consecutive seasons maybe we've ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah. That will go down as his best season for sure.
I mean, he just had everything working. Yeah. Like they were in a full rhythm until they had the double bye, and then we saw what happened. But I probably stay away from Lamar props. It's just very difficult. And just for anyone that's wondering, because it's smart to think about these things, just so you know, if you bet the unders thinking that they're only going to play like 10 games, you will be voided. Just so you know, like these all have stipulations that the league has to play 16 games.
Right.
So if it's a shortened season or something, none of these will count.
Ben's not saying it's voided if they get hurt. He's saying the league cancels games.
Yeah, right. I should clarify that. Thank you. If the league says we're only playing 10 games this year, none of these props will be official.
Ben, this one's for you. I've been waiting to hit you with this one. Josh Allen, 21.5. Look, man, I know we worry about injuries and he's a running quarterback, but like, you're insane if you don't think Josh Allen can throw north of 21 touchdowns now that go ahead, because I got a lot to say on this, but I'll let you get to it first.
Yeah, he should be able to do that. I don't think it's an indication, even if he hovers around that, solely on him. Like his offense is not explosive. He plays in Buffalo. It's freezing. Like, these things matter. But at the same time, he's added in what I think is an underrated Stephon Diggs. He has John Brown. Lofty, I know where you stand on Singletary. Like, he has weapons.
Love him.
If they can add a tight end, this is an offense that should have no problem being efficient, if nothing else. So with the way he can throw the ball, I'm not saying I'm predicting 30 touchdowns for him by any stretch just because of the product of the offense, but he should take another step forward, and the Bills should as a team.
I really like the over there. Essentially, you need him to throw 2 more touchdowns than he did last year with Stephon Diggs and with Frank Gore not stealing opportunities on 3rd downs and pretty much all downs away from Devin Singletary. The crazy thing, though, is when you look at the tight end position. I was reading an article on The Athletic the other day, essentially saying, like, when is the last time this team had a viable statistical production or statistical season from a tight end? It's been forever.
It really has.
Like, Charles Clay never worked out.
No, we didn't. Logan Thomas season? No.
Logan Thomas never worked out.
Pete Metzelaars?
It's crazy.
You don't know how. I mean, I think I'm stating the obvious. It's a game changer. Even look at the best of the best. Look at the Patriots. How, I don't want to say dysfunctional, but man, is it different when you have Matt Lacoste instead of, these guys that are vertical threats. It's so dangerous when you have that guy that he's too fast for linebackers and he's too big for safeties. You see it time and time again. I mean, Jimmy G, it's no surprise that life is easier when you have one of those guys.
Yeah.
Gosh, over under 21.5 for Josh Allen. He's got Diggs now, John Brown opposite him, Devin Singletary. Got a pretty decent offense now.
God, this one's so tough.
Is it?
Who's the Bills' backup?
He's not getting benched.
Who's the Bills' backup?
I don't know, but it doesn't matter.
Why?
Because I just want to know who the damn backup is.
He just wants a reason. He just wants a reason to take the under.
It's Matt Barkley. No, I just, I don't answer questions unless I have the information that I want for it. It's Matt Barkley. Yeah, I'm not super worried about Matt Barkley supplanting him.
Why would you worry about any backup supplanting him? Doesn't make any sense.
Pretty easily makes some
What?
sense. What?
No.
I don't think he's very good.
There is no backup you could take any backup quarterback in the league, put him on the Bills, and there's 0% chance he plays the game, barring injury.
I'm not a big Josh Allen guy. I don't want Ben to stab me on a stream.
No, they are, though. Like, there's no doubt that the Bills are very happy with what they have right now. I'm not saying it pans out, but they should have won a playoff game last year.
Yep. Josh Allen made 2 big mistakes in that game.
Yeah, one that I didn't know existed when he tried to throw the ball out of bounds in the middle of the game, which is something you don't see often.
No, not great. 2 big mistakes, but don't ignore, and look, I kind of excoriated him on Twitter as well for some of those mistakes, but don't ignore the fact that after those mistakes, he made 3 or 4 huge plays as well. He is capable of making big plays and putting his team in a position to win. Didn't they go to overtime?
Yes. And that was after bad things happened.
Right. Cause he put him back in a spot to score.
Yes. They had the game. I mean, that spoke more to Deshaun Watson's incredible. And that was part of it. But listen, Josh Allen, you're going to get those. I've seen more Josh Allen than most because I watched all his Wyoming games. Even there, where he was playing inferior competition, he would have a play or two a game where you would just be like, why? But he makes up for it with plays that he's one of the few quarterbacks can make, and his rushing upside is also really significant.
He's also another guy that, makes me a little nervous about running a lot and avoiding.
Oh yeah, he takes
injury.
Hits too.
Yeah. Line is 9 on the Bills. I mean, I think that's a really good number. I assume they hover around that 9-7, 10-6 area, depending on how things break. And his health is very important to that number. It's honestly a line that I would want to stay away from.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable on that.
It feels pretty good to me.
You're talking about 9 wins for the Bills?
No. Hit the touchdown prop.
Oh, I thought you said 9. I thought you were talking
Well,
about
I was
wins.
just thinking, I expect him to be better if the Bills are projected. Quarterback stat props and team win props are going to be relatively hand in hand in that is the position that dictates success more so than anything else. So if you like the Bills over, you probably like Josh Allen props.
I don't think they're as correlated as you're making them out to be.
Neither do I.
Really?
I think the Bills are going to win the division, but to me, it speaks more to the fact that he limits turnovers. If they're horrible, I'll put it like this: if barring injury, of course, say the Bills go 6-10.
Yeah,
I actually think he would crush the prop because he would be throwing. It's what you spoke about with Jimmy G.
Look at Jameis Winston last year. They did not win a ton of games, and he threw 33 touchdowns.
I think ideally the Bills want to run the ball. They want to limit Josh Allen attempts, be efficient, do his thing. I doubt they want him dropping back 35 times a game. I know they don't. I think that's pretty obvious.
He strikes me as a person that is more likely to throw touchdowns when they're succeeding. And that sounds like something I'm making up in my head. I'm realizing how it sounds. But I feel like if the Bills are playing well, he's more likely to be throwing TDs. And if the Bills are not playing well, he's more likely to be throwing lots of interceptions.
It's possible, but Winston threw 30 picks and 33 touchdowns. Now, granted, that is an extreme outlier. Yeah. It's literally never happened before, ever. He is the only member. He is the founder of the 30-30 club. But in the same breath, I think their run game will be good this year. I am a believer in Devin Singletary. I like Devin Singletary. I think he puts them in better position to score. But ultimately, this is what it comes down to for me. Josh Allen doesn't need to be great on the deep ball. He just needs to not wildly overthrow Stephon Diggs and John Brown too often. And if he can do that, they're going to have a lot of opportunities to get to score here. And they're going to be opening this offense up. I know it's only one player, and maybe I'm overstating how much Stephon Diggs means to this team, but I think Stephon Diggs means a lot to this offense, a lot based on where they were last year, moving to this year. I think it's a huge difference maker in this offense. And now I think they finally can open it up the way they maybe want to and let Josh Allen not throw 40 times a game, but take a good amount of shots every Sunday.
The ceiling for him is huge. Yeah. I mean, I'm adamant about that. I just think that there are ways where I feel more confident in the success of the Bills than I do in the sense of how Josh Allen specifically plays. But I will say, I think that the sky's the limit for him. If the Bills have I'll put it like this. I don't think it's crazy if you can find a huge number, and it would be huge to throw money on Josh Allen MVP. If they go 12-4 or 13-3 and they coast, he could have a huge year. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but there are avenues where he has a monster year in my mind.
You talking like Lamar light?
Yeah, similar style quarterback won it last year.
He can run the ball. He's a red zone threat. He has, say Diggs explodes. We don't know about the Patriots. That division could be really soft. They could rack up a ton of wins. I don't want to say there's fatigue with Mahomes. But at the same time, if Josh Allen has a big year and the Bills are like a storyline, it's not insane to think. And I would assume his odds are through the roof. No one is rightfully so on that train.
Josh, we got a little giveaway happening on Twitter. Actually, it's a pretty good, not a little giveaway. It's a pretty sizable giveaway. What's going on over on Twitter?
Ooh, it's good stuff, man. It's good stuff. By the way, plus 5,000. Allen.
It's plus 5,000.
I honestly thought it would be more, but that's not terrible. 50-1.
Oh, MVP.
Yeah. pulling it up now. So doing a giveaway for the NFL draft. If you head to our Twitter account, Awesemo_com or Awesemo NFL, we've got a pinned tweet right now. You can win an Awesemo.com Platinum Yearly Pass, yearly, I might add, whole year, 365 days, and an NFL jersey of your choice if you can predict the first 3 picks in the draft. Here's what you have to do. You need to be following Awesemo_com and our Awesemo NFL account. You need to like, retweet, and reply to that tweet with your guess of the top 3 picks. One random winner will be selected from the comments section. It's a $1,300 value. This locks 8 p.m. Thursday night, right before the draft starts. You can win a yearly Awesemo Plus Platinum package and a jersey of your choice.
Huge. Absolutely huge.
And one oil future.
Barrel.
So, at this point, you no longer have to have a stranger newly follow Awesemo.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
I was just going to leave that out.
It's the pinned tweet. Well, for people that were wondering, it has changed at Awesemo_com.
Still tag your friends.
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, you should still tag your friends. It's just no longer a requirement.
It's just not a requirement.
Yeah, it's like following us. You should follow us 3.
Yeah.
You'll still be eligible, but it's highly encouraged.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, dude, if there are people that watch the show with us every morning, and there's a lot of regulars here, we've all become friends, and they don't follow us.
I know that would hurt.
Clowns.
Yeah.
That would hurt.
Sometimes that happens where someone will tweet at me every day. I go back and forth. I have conversation with anyone that tweets at me as long as they're not assholes. I see they're not following me. Say, preposterous. Just preposterous.
Really is.
I digress. The esports package is at Awesemo as well. Very profitable for many. Awesemo.com/join esports. The package gets you projections, the rankings, strategy. Strategy is actually free. So if you're not in a position to pay right now, check that out. Top stacks tool, the ownership projections, ownership ranks. There's so much to get into. Counter-Strike projections and ownership. We even got Rocket League projections. Basically, any of these ones that have prize pools, we've got it at Awesemo.com. And you can choose a package, a plan that works best for you, right? If you don't want to do a monthly yet because you're not sure you're going to love it, you're not sure you're going to be profitable, you're not sure about the content, which I assure you will like. The weekly package is $8.95. It gets you the game plan videos, again, the projections, ownership, fantasy point rankings, ownership rankings, expert chat, and all the premium articles. It's just 1 week instead of a month. Or you can do the express package as well, which still gives you ownership, rankings, fantasy point rankings, expert chat, and all the premium articles. That's $4.95 a month for all of our esports. Go to awesemo.com/join esports today and say what's up in the premium Slack chat when you do. They're talking League of Legends. Look, Slack is still alive, especially in the League of Legends channel.
No doubt. And like we've said, it's not just Alex. We know we see him at the top, but we've had a ton of people from this very chat that has said, I bought the package, I read the primer, I'm making some money during the hiatus, and it's a nice little bankroll boost before DFS comes back in full. So we're going to be doing some things centered around that. We want to get you in there. We do have some, again, I'll say real quick, with the draft, we have some articles posted on that. If you are looking to dabble maybe on a couple props before Thursday, get in there, shop the lines. I talked to Luffy yesterday on this. The value changes rapidly depending on where you look. So try to get that best line for yourself and maybe add some more money to the bankroll. Absolutely.
100%. We'll see you there. Last one I want to throw you guys. And this is one where I actually, of all the ones that we talked about, Wentz, I have a pretty, barring injury, I have a pretty good read on Wentz and Baker and Josh Allen, Jimmy G, Lamar, or not Lamar. But this one with Kyler Murray, 24.5, I have a very difficult time with that because, first, glance, you're like, oh, Josh, at first glance, like, oh, he easily goes over here. He's got DeAndre Hopkins. He should be in good shape, even though he only threw 20 touchdowns and 12 interceptions last year. 25, which is what he'd need to get to. I'm still a little hesitant to pull the trigger on the over there.
These are so difficult, man.
They're tough.
It's so difficult.
This one, I think, is really difficult.
Yeah, especially because we have no concept of what his health can look like moving forward. You assume that it's going to be terrible.
And what type of chemistry does he end up having with DeAndre Hopkins if they have limited time to actually get together on the field and practice and not have a normal extended training camp?
I assume you're fine in situations like that.
I don't know.
When it comes to
chemistry is a real thing.
No doubt. No doubt.
I don't think it's a real thing in this particular instance. I think chemistry can make a guy better. Like you can improve a situation here, but I don't think Hopkins is stepping on that field and like finding it hard to find the chemistry with Kyler Murray.
It's Murray finding it hard to find the chemistry with DeAndre Hopkins.
I think he's just going to be incredibly happy that man exists, whether they have chemistry or not. He's already like he becomes the best wide receiver that Kyler Murray has ever played with. He's good. Like, could it be slightly better? Yes, but it's already the best situation he could get.
Well, I see it the other way though.
Oh,
I
really?
think I think Hopkins is going to quickly find out that Deshaun Watson makes his life a lot easier than Kyler Murray is going to.
So
you think that
he's
Hopkins
saying he thinks
means
Deshaun
more to
Watson is
Watson
way
than
better
Murray?
than Murray? He's saying Deshaun Watson's way better than Murray.
Way better, to the point that yes, I think that's partly an issue. I don't think it's when you're taking a stud wide receiver, if you're putting them to an upgraded QB, I think the chemistry issue is way less important than going.
Look at Odell Beckham last year.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, don't get me started.
I'm not
on
sold
Odell
on Kyler
Beckham
Murray
again, by the way.
So that's the other thing. Like, I don't think we've seen anything. I'm not saying he's bad. I'm not saying he's good. I'm just saying the jury's still out. So I'll go to what I keep saying. Look at that division. You get 2 against the Niners, 2 against the Rams, 2 against the Seahawks.
Yeah.
Not a great start for any prop in the over department.
No, I think it's terrifying. Now, could he go over? Yeah, I think so. And that's why, like I said, I don't have a strong read on this one. But I don't know if it's going to be just a plug and play situation with Kyler Murray. We'll see. But they've got to face, like you said, those 6 teams or 6 games. There's the Eagles, the Bills. I'm just looking at their schedule here. The Cowboys, the Patriots. They're going to have a tough road ahead of them. But yeah, I'm pretty sketchy on that one for me. It's going to be tough to get to.
Kyler Murray plus 2,500 to win the MVP.
Wait, what?
Kyler Murray plus 2,500 to win the MVP.
So Josh Allen is actually double those odds?
Yeah, I mean, neither one of them are significant. So like the difference between 2,500 and 5,000 in like the grand scheme of winning the MVP, they're basically the same number. But yeah, the odds are double.
I mentioned this on Sirius the other day that Tom Brady has the 4th best MVP odds in the league. I think we talked about this. That's insanity. But
insanity. I mean, there's a blueprint to MVP too.
Yeah,
like
that's why he does.
Yeah.
Right. Because their win total's pretty high.
But I don't see that.
Right. Like, I think that he should have the same odds as Deshaun Watson because Tom Brady has a narrative component to this that Deshaun Watson cannot find.
This might sound crazy, but I think Deshaun Watson's MVP total or MVP odds are almost too favorable. Or no, I'm sorry. Almost too low. Like, without DeAndre Hopkins, Brandon Cooks is not a replacement by any stretch for DeAndre Hopkins.
Who else did they get? Somebody else sucks.
What's that?
Short last name.
What are you talking about?
They got another wideout.
Kenny Stills?
No.
Kike Coutee?
No, they signed somebody. Or maybe traded for them. I don't know.
They did?
Cooks?
Tate? They get Tate?
Golden Tate? Maybe. I mean,
I didn't never saw that.
Golden Tate.
Cobb.
No, it says Burns.
Oh, Randall Cobb.
Yeah,
Yes.
I
yes.
knew it was a
Randall
short. I knew it was a short last
Okay.
name.
Right.
Yeah,
Randall Cobb's a decent enough slot guy. I don't have any issues with that.
Yeah, they have
Like you don't.
They
you
got a
don't
C at
replace
number 2s.
DeAndre Hopkins. You don't replace DeAndre Hopkins.
No, that's going to be very problematic.
Some
Deshaun
of these
Watson made
MVP
some.
odds are just absurd, though. Like Phillip Rivers plus 4,000. Hell, I'd have him at plus 10,000.
I mean, that's why you have to shop. Like, I'm sure you can get him maybe north of 100 to 1 somewhere. Not that that means it's a good bet because he has a 0% chance. But there's a couple. Yeah, it's tough though. That's one you really don't want to reach. It rarely, if ever, comes out of the blue.
Yeah. So is that what they have? Are these birth dates next to them to differentiate between other players? Josh Allen, 1996. Michael Thomas, 1993.
Gotta be.
I'm not looking at the same thing that you are.
On DraftKings, it's on there.
It has to be.
You want to hear something insane? Michael Thomas has the same MVP odds. Oh my God. As DeAndre Swift and Raheem Mostert and Jameis Winston, who's not on a team.
I mean, Michael Thomas cannot win the MVP, so they should all have infinite numbers.
It's preposterous, though, that is the way that these are done, where like somebody as good as him that made such a like, why could Michael Thomas not have won? I obviously Lamar Jackson, I get that, but to think that Michael Thomas, whether it was Drew Brees or Teddy Bridgewater, put up astounding, eye-popping numbers last year, there is no reason he shouldn't have been squarely in the conversation as your MVP winner. 1,700 yards, 9 touchdowns, 149 receptions. He broke records last year on many fronts, and he did so with 2 different quarterbacks playing and producing huge numbers with both of them under center.
Yeah, they never win.
Yeah, and he has 0 chance to win the MVP.
He has no chance. It's like
Right.
the Heisman.
It's bullshit.
Yeah, it sucks. It's just.
Well, I don't think it's bullshit at all. I think it's 100% right. I don't think it's possible for a quarterback or for a wide receiver to be the most valuable player in the league.
But that's
by miles.
But that's when it devolves, because then, not to jump to the NBA, but then LeBron's the MVP for like 15 years in a row. You know what I mean?
Oh no, I think this is wildly different.
Yeah, I don't. I get
that question is best player.
No, see, I think
LeBron. You're saying that because LeBron would be the best player in the league, and we all know that, correct?
No, I'm saying that if you took him off the teams that were constructed like that, they lose more wins than any other player.
Right. So, like, I don't think it's possible for a wide receiver to be even remotely close to that. Whereas it's only quarterbacks. Like, I don't think Michael Thomas is worth the 15th best quarterback.
I agree 100%. That's why I wish they would just do best player. Like,
You don't think Michael Thomas is worth the 15th best quarterback?
No,
neither do I.
That's crazy.
It's not even close.
It's just an opportunity cost. The backup QBs are just, it's like the running back thing where we go like, I don't want to go down this wormhole, but like, what's McCaffrey worth?
Right.
Okay. What if you took 7 different quarterbacks, 8 different quarterbacks last year in New Orleans, each of them plays 2 games.
Yeah.
Michael Thomas has 1,810 and 150 receptions.
Yeah.
And they win 12 games.
Yeah. Some other quarterback wins the MVP.
Well, yeah, but
what are you asking, I guess?
Yeah.
That should he not have some type of conversation of at least in the top 10 or 15 doing that with a rotating carousel of quarterbacks?
No, that's why he won AP Offensive Player of the Year.
That's why I think he might be the best player. I'm all for. I don't think it should be like this. I'm just saying that's the way it is because you just can't generate enough value. Wide receivers can't do anything. Someone has to pass them the ball. Yeah. And that just makes it really difficult. It's not right, but that's just the way it is. They are basically ineligible.
Yeah.
In every sort of advanced metric I've ever seen for the NFL, the level of wins that are attributed to the quarterback far outpace any other position to the point where you can't You can't close that gap no matter what you would do.
They have the ball in their hands every play.
Here's the problem, though. The problem being that running backs have won the award.
Not recently, though.
2012.
Yeah,
that's a time where we had a very
few and far between.
Yeah.
2006. Well, 2012 is not too far ago.
No, but you're talking about how many in the last 20 years? Is it only like 2 or 3?
1, 2, 3, 4.
And that Tomlinson one, like you need to have a year where you're catching 100 balls, running for 1,800 yards, scoring 30 touchdowns or something stupid.
And your team has to be good.
Yeah,
it's tough.
Yeah, no, I get it. I'm just saying in terms of contributing to wins, running backs are contributing to less wins than most.
Yeah.
So the other thing, just to put a bow on this, it's going to be even harder because now quarterbacks, they can run. I don't think, I'll take it a step further. I think pocket passers might be almost extinct in the MVP.
Agreed.
Because when you can add 1,000 yards on the ground and another 10 touchdowns, how do you make up for that?
I completely agree with you. It's going to be like NBA centers.
Patrick Mahomes rushed for 200 yards and won the MVP. So they're not extinct. He did it 2 years ago.
Yes, if he can replicate 50 touchdowns.
Matt Ryan did it in 2016, Ben. Aaron Rodgers in 2000. I get
I'm
it.
not saying they have been extinct.
I get you saying going forward. Yeah. I do understand that. But I honestly, I think if there's a better mobile quarterback out there that has like 30 passing and 10 rushing, he's going to win it over the 40 passing and 0 rushing. But I definitely don't think you're ruling out non-mobile quarterbacks at this point. Tom Brady, didn't Brady win it in 2017 too? So like 2 statuesque quarterbacks and one that rushed for 200 yards have won it in the past 3 years.
I'm not debating any. I'm saying in 5 years from now, there are going to be more quarterbacks like Lamar than Brady. Mahomes is becoming, I'm not saying he's deadly, but he's going to be like regarded as a low-key runner. He can run.
He's not Tom Brady. He's not Peyton Manning. He's not a statue. I don't disagree with that.
I don't know how many quarterbacks are going to be at worst Mahomes level mobile. And I think most will be not Lamar, of course, but these guys can move. It's pretty brutal.
If we're talking about that, then I agree. Like if you're talking about a Carson Wentz type winning it, because Carson Wentz is more than capable of scrambling out of the pocket. Sure. But like, I don't think it's going to trend in the direction of only Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen type quarterbacks winning MVPs.
To me, there's going to be so many of them that it will.
Yeah. So I'm with Ben in that the people that are playing quarterback are just going to be different people moving forward. It's still always going to go to a team that's, 12-4 or better, no matter. Like you're drawing from a narrow pool of team wins first and foremost. I just don't think I'm with Ben in that the era of Tom Brady being an NFL quarterback is basically going to go away.
Yes, I agree.
So how many of those quarterbacks in this upcoming draft contribute or would fit the archetype that you're talking about?
I mean, to me, most of them. Tua is not exactly mobile. Justin Herbert can move. Obviously, Hurts is dangerously.
No. But we're saying it's trending in the direction of Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen.
Yeah, I think. I guess let me clarify it. I'm saying that the floor is now basically extinct. I think the floor for rushers coming in is Mahomes, is Burrow, is Herbert. They can all.
Oh, well, that's totally different. I would agree with you on that.
Okay. Well,
I'm saying if we're trending in the direction of those Lamar Jacksons and Josh Allens, I haven't necessarily seen that in terms of overall quarterback crops in drafts in recent years or this one.
I guess for me, Lamar is always going to be the ceiling.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that everyone comes out as Lamar, that he's special like that. I'm just saying that the average quarterback is going to be a lot more mobile. We're seeing it already. And in 5 years, putting up 500 yards rushing is going to be pretty standard in my mind for a quarterback.
That I wouldn't disagree with. I disagree with the extremes that we're talking about on both ends.
No, that's fair.
I think Lamar Jackson is an anomaly, and
He
you still
is.
won't
He
see that
doesn't
again.
really count for anything.
But is like Kyler Murray an anomaly?
Well, Kyler Murray's not.
Yes.
But see, that, again, like Kyler Murray is a guy that will run when he has to. I know he had like 500 rushing yards last year. I think 200 of them came, or I think 100 of them came against the Bengals, by the way. They just got absolutely shredded by running quarterbacks. Yeah, that I don't think Kyler Murray is an anomaly, but like, then again, dude, Dwayne Haskins came up in the same draft and is basically immobile.
I think that's an incredible rarity, and it may be, I mean, you've already discarded him, but
that's why he won't be around.
Like, Stroud me 10. Justin Fields is the future of the QB position. I agree 1,000%. That is the guy that I envision more often than not. Yeah. He can throw, he can move. He doesn't run all the time like Lamar, but when he runs, it's very dangerous.
Sure, but that we've been trending in that direction.
Yeah. I know. I'm saying we're going to continue more and more.
Yeah, and I was saying that I guess we were not on the same wavelength here, because trending in the direction again of Lamar and even Josh Allen types is a lot different than like the Carson Wentz type ability as a runner and Kyler Murray. So
it's weird that we even like, it's going to look so different than this in the future. Lamar Jackson had 156 runs last year. Josh Allen had 95. Kyler Murray had 82. Next closest is Watson at 69, which is nice. But that's just such a like minimal amount of just attempts in general in a given game. You know, Russell Wilson at 60 is like 4 a game, basically.
Yeah, Russell Wilson just doesn't run anymore.
That's just not like...
But he can.
He can. Yeah. He can.
I think that's what's going to take this meteoric rise. A quarterback rushing attempts on a game-by-game basis.
When I say he doesn't rush anymore, I mean there were seasons where he had 800 rushing yards and 500 plus for like 3 or 4 straight years.
See, I think attempts are much more important for quarterback than yardage.
Why? Because a lot of times they're just in a lot of times you're just in a ton of trouble and you might not get out of it. You might only pick up a yard, but you're just slow as shit trying to get outside, and it doesn't make a difference, even if you attempt it.
Maybe I'm doing a bad job explaining. This is a spot where I think Football Outsiders DVOA metric is massive, where they're basically measuring success on a given play. I think we're getting a much bigger outlook on how a quarterback is mobile if he runs a lot, not necessarily how many yards he puts up. Like, who's a better runner, Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson?
Russell Wilson.
Okay, so like to me, it's Watson.
To me, it's Watson too, but it's very close.
More capable? I mean, Russell Wilson's been, the more productive rusher, but I guess we're only counting attempts.
Yeah, like for me, and this isn't even, they're separated by 9 in this particular case. I think the efficiency of a quarterback running is the most important piece of this.
Wait.
Which is the DVOA metric.
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I'm confused at what you're saying as well.
You're saying the attempts matters, and then you say the efficiency matters most. They contradict each other.
Yes.
No, I'm doing a bad job of explaining this.
Terrible.
Yeah, real bad. So it's not
if Russell Wilson
Billy Madison moment.
It's not that volume of attempts matter. I don't know. I'm ruining this. Get off of me.
Listen, for me, I don't think the number of attempts is relevant at all. It's the threat of being able to rip off 20, 30-yard gains when you do run. More and more quarterbacks have that, and going forward, I almost think it's going to be a prerequisite. Running like Lamar is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think teams just don't want their guys running like that.
No.
But being able to, even Mahomes, the play that stands out the most from the playoffs last year was the run against Tennessee. Like, that's the kind of thing that I think is just a given now for all these quarterbacks, and that's a whole game changer.
And Mahomes is the scariest because he will lull you to sleep in the pocket. and then he's gone.
Yeah.
And
that's an efficiency thing to me.
Yeah.
No. Look, you and I agree on efficiency. It was that you said
volume
attempts matter first. We agree on the efficiency front. You were saying you care more about attempts first. That's why.
Like when they happen, not necessarily the volume of. Like Mahomes rushed for 230 yards, but we do not think that he is anything other than a dangerous running quarterback, regardless of him rushing for only 230 yards.
Right. Same with Carson Wentz, particularly before the injury. But I mean, Wentz even last year had 62 rushes for 241 yards, but he has the ability to break one for 30. Those type of quarterbacks are dangerous if they're good pocket passers. The ones that aren't nearly as dangerous, like Josh Allen is dangerous, but he'd be so much more dangerous if he was a legitimate downfield threat that really concerned opposing defense. If he did that, he's in the MVP race.
You're going to see that this year. You are. With John Brown and Diggs stretching the field, it's going to be open season. If he can connect, and I think he will.
All right. Well, this is fun.
Yeah, this stuff is fascinating, and we're going to have a whole lot. Obviously, it goes without saying, the minute these guys get drafted, we're going to be doing some recaps on who blew it and who went and got Jerry Jeudy and just solidified themselves for the next 10 years of Super Bowl runs.
We're 2 days away from the draft. This is going to be fantastic. I can't wait. And we'll be here to break all of it down before and after. Not to mention, we got a little bit NBA 2K action today coming up. It's Tuesday the 21st. Doubleheader, Pacers, Heat, Thunder, Jazz. Fill out your daily challenges at Awesemo.com. You'll see the ENBA drop down. Get your lineups in at FanDuel, giving away $2,000 in bonus cash for this not single game, but actual, 2-game DFS regular lineup that we've got both of them over there. $200 to first place at Awesemo Daily Challenge. We're going to break everything down beforehand. We're going to get started at 7 p.m. Game tips off at 7:15, and we'll be in business. Anything else, boys?
No, hit the like button on the way out. Stay tuned for flash sales. We're certainly going to have them, in the coming days. We're happy you guys stop by each and every morning. Fun week ahead with the draft, and we'll see you guys tonight.
See you guys back here tonight, 7 p.m. sharp. Also, you got no football today, but on Thursday, we've got NBA 2K Sim Bracket in the afternoon, followed by the NBA Madden or NFL Madden Sim early in the night. So that would be in order to get the games in, but also be able to watch the NFL draft. So you'll be lined up, sitting pretty, a little NBA 2K, little Madden, and then work your way into the draft. And then we'll cover everything on Friday. We'll catch you back here tomorrow on the Awesemo Morning Show.